Hello, everyone. I'm so happy you're here, and I'm really happy to share this with you. I think most of us are probably here because we're excited about contributing to a magical technology with a lot of potential to transform our society. And I wonder if you also sometimes think about why we're barely scratching the surface of using it wisely. And so today I want to unpack what I would consider magical from the perspective of the history of magic, why I think that most technology that we have right now is not used to be magical, and also what we can learn from the history of magic in order to create products that have never existed before and actually transform our society. So before I go into the details, I want to quickly elaborate on a fundamental difference that I found. I started with magic when I was 13 and didn't have a lot of friends. And it got me into rabbit holes on magic and performance and history of it, as well as technology. So I also sat at home quite a lot on my computer. And so there's two basic definitions that I kind of like perceived, and one of them is a magic trick versus a magical experience. And this will guide us throughout this the next 20 minutes a little bit. So I want to show you a magic trick. Sasha, do you mind coming up here just for a second? So give her a round of applause. This is Sasha. She just did a presentation right before we started. I think you might have to stand about here. And just please let everybody know that you have no idea what's going to happen. We didn't set anything up.
Nothing whatsoever.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so hold on. Maybe I can do something like this. Ah, yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you so much. This is helpful. Thank you. All right. So I'll show you a card trick. I hope you can see it. So we have an ace of spades here. Could you just tap on any card from the middle? Okay. Yeah, yeah. Maybe like here-ish. Okay. Okay. So you tapped on this one.
Yeah.
I'll just show it to you real quick. Can you remember that?
Yeah.
You have it? I'll show it to you as well. Okay, remember? Okay. Now, could you actually keep your finger extended, and just push it back inside? Okay, cool. Now, you remember I had the ace of spades here. What was the card? Could you name it out loud into the microphone?
Ace of hearts.
Wait, no. Can you? Oh, sorry. Oh, wait. Did you see the one that you just had? Yeah. Was that the ace of hearts? Yeah. Okay, cool. Watch. Wow. Okay. So that was. Okay. Wait. Stay here. So that was like a fleeting moment of delight and a bit of excitement, and it's usually followed also by a sense of like, oh, there was a trick. Like, obviously, I've done something here. There's a sleight of hand, and I would argue that, thank you, that most of the technology that we have is actually used to show us kind of tricks. And by technology, I don't just mean things like computers or apps, but also organizations that kind of trick us into believing we can have wealth and status, but kind of at the cost of being unkind to each other or isolating us or I have slides here, sorry. Or educational systems, they kind of use us to trick us into believing that we can be wise and smart and influence others, but obviously at the cost of collecting the right certificates and not collecting real-world experience. And then products that promise us to live forever and be happy and healthy if we just keep using them all the time. And so it's kind of like they're tricking us into believing we can have something, but actually kind of dehumanizing us. And this is very different from the historical idea of what magic is, because before society and the technosphere, magic used to be a symbol for predicting the future and controlling nature, and actually connected society and connected people together and recovered and restored our relationships to each other. And this is an example from Thailand, where the whole village came together and the child was not meant to survive, and they came together in this sacred ritual, healed the child, and then it ended up surviving. That was like a mystical and magical experience. Okay, so now let me show you, let me attempt to show you an example with playing cards. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to just point to any face-up card. Okay. So anyone also from the middle. Okay, the King of Diamonds. Okay, cool. We'll just leave it sticking out here. So the King of Diamonds, just leaving it somewhere in the middle. This might not work, by the way. So in a moment, the inevitable will happen, and you will find your card. Don't do anything yet. I'll instruct. Take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, remember a time when you thought of something and it happened, like you thought of a person and they called you up or sent you a message, or like, do you have something? Or you thought of an opportunity. Okay. So think about that kind of like serendipitous moment. And take your left hand, your right-handed, right? And hold it above the deck, a bit higher. And hold on. Just like so. And whenever you feel like you're ready and when you can focus on that moment, just drop down your hand and lift off approximately, maybe a bit more than half the deck. Okay. What was the card you had? So how would you describe that experience?
It's a jolt of happiness.
So it is a completely different, it's almost a somatic experience. Thank you so much, Sasha. Give her a round of applause, please. So it's a completely different experience. It also like connected you all by witnessing this one unique moment. And magical experiences are like full of awe and wonder and serendipity, and they're also very, very difficult to forget. And some people remember them for the rest of their lives. And my point is that a lot of technology is kind of used to show us tricks and kind of like creating this techno-utopia that's super frictionless but actually dehumanizing, whereas the historical note of magic is much more connective. And I think this is where Web3 can actually shine through, because we're using a lot of technology in order to establish trust and connect people with each other. And we have been here before, like now that I've started with card tricks, playing cards used to be hand-drawn, and the drawings let people, the reason cards survived was because the drawings let people tell stories about each other, and they were ambiguous enough that people could see each other in them. That's where kind of tarot came from. And then in the 1500s, the printing press came out and made it much easier to replicate designs, and the human aspect kind of faded away, and the cards got much simpler. They were used for gambling, coins came around, and then people started cheating with each other, started building casinos. And then there were a few people who ended up using the skills and sleights to tell stories again and show actually magical experiences. And they were the ones that ended up influencing film and performance art and a lot of culture that developed afterwards. And if you've been in Web3 for long enough, you might also recognize the pattern. We started off by playing around with the tech, then there was a lot of spirituality that influenced the solar punk ideas on Twitter, and then slightly things moved into casino space. And then there's still a handful of teams and individuals who ended up building more connective technology, and like usually they're self-funded, and they're not really relying on the kind of cryptocurrency ideals, but they're actually trying to build transformative experiences. And remember, this is the kind of magic experience part. It's literally just a way of predicting the future and trying to control nature, and using technology that's invisible in order to kind of reconnect, restore, and transform society. It's in a kind of, that's in a historical sense. And so I'm going to show you just walk through four basic principles that I think are worth paying attention to when you design and create products that are very common across like the most famous magicians, but also across the teams that I found that actually focus on delivering a lot of value to our community. And one of them is having a granular vision of the future, hiding the method and technology, having a simple effect and experience, and supporting that by a value-aligned organizational process. So this is like related to Conway's law, in case someone knows that. So with regard to the vision, how many of you think or have an idea of like an ideal future, just where you want to live? Just raise your hand real quick, please. Cool. So this is amazing. Like you already have a great or like a refined concept of where you would like to live. And write it down, because that'll guide you throughout your entire process of developing something. This is a quote that stuck for me for like 20 years. We're doing something serious, not solemn. We're taking people to the edge of their understanding, and we're showing them the abyss. We're showing them what's over the edge and what's there. And the abyss is that kind of like vision. That's your understanding of what the future is supposed to look like. And it's kind of this desirable, ongoing, constantly evolving idea of the future. And most commonly, it's considered a part of a vision or mission statement in startups. But I would really recommend writing it out and elaborating on it. This is an example from a team I worked with called D-Logos. They're a really interesting project. Feel free to look it up. And they're really, really specific, and so specific that they end up influencing, that vision ends up influencing all of the departments of their project. So whether it's their actual product, their marketing process, but also sales and also the hiring and onboarding processes. And so when you have that written down, it's much easier to create a holistic image that attracts people, that attracts users, that attracts contributors into this vision that you have in the world. Secondly, I think one of the reasons why we don't have the next billion users yet is because we're shipping incomplete projects and we're using a lot of technical jargon. And that's not an insult. I think that's fine. That's part of the process. And when we, as magicians, we also constantly experiment with things. They don't work. They fail. And by the way, this is also a really cool app. I recommend playing around with it. It's basically just encrypted notes, but it does use crypto in order to make that a bit safer. Feel free to play around with it. And from magic, there's a good example, or a book that also stuck with me, from a magician called Juan Tamariz. He's basically describing this path that you're leading your users along into this kind of magical future world, into this abyss. And every time they respond with something that is maybe catching you out, or maybe they're mentioning a technology that you're using, that's your opportunity to go back to the drawing board and refine the effect so that they don't ask that again. So it's like you're iteratively guiding people through and through and guiding them along the path into this desirable future. In a more kind of crypto native example, it's basically after interviews. This is just a tangible example how you can see the difference between designing it once and then showing it to 5 people, and then the whole experience just gets refined and a lot simpler. And you just do that over and over again, and over time you understand more and more what's the essence of that actual project and the experience that you're designing. It's very important to just hide away as much as possible as you can. Okay, the next is the effect. The effect is essentially what every magic book starts with, and it's your opportunity to to let people interact with your broader vision and your experience. And it's very. How many of you have experienced watching looking at a project and it had a lot of features and it was maybe a little bit confusing to interact with? I did not expect that many hands, but you know what I mean. And that's also fine. It's part of the process because we have this elaborate vision, and I'm finding myself in it as well sometimes, just to put everything out there. And I'm so excited about sharing that with people. But the effect is a lot about simplifying the experience into something that is very, very unique and very simple, boiled down to the essence. And I think in that sense, we're also often forgetting our true kind of powers as magicians or as magical creators, whereas we can create a lot of cool animations and cool tech to impress people in a short term. That's a little bit like the magic trick that I showed you before. But think about a to-do list, for example, as a piece of software. Of course, you can design the checkbox animation and the popping sound, but you can also look at it as a creator of something that helps people think a thought and then turn that into reality. And I think that perspective is a lot more connected to kind of a truly magical experience. Or rather than saying someone get 12% yield, you're actually making people feel safe with their assets, like what Sasha was talking about, trust. Or encrypting data. It's not just making people, providing privacy, but it's actually about making people trust each other, even if they don't know each other or have never met before. And here's an example I also recommend checking out. This is a really good kind of case study for kind of this iterative refined process. Colony used to be a DAO tool from a friend of mine, Jack, and he's essentially, he built out a DAO tool, ended up being very specific to him. But over the years, he figured out all the things that are not really useful for other people and kept refining it into a one very, very simple experience. So now it's like any token, any chain in your bank in minutes. It's like, it's very narrow, but it uses quite a lot of things that he learned over the last decade. And it's also magical in that sense because you're connecting, or he's connecting people from one world into another in minutes. And like when you experience it, it's like super smooth and delightful. Sorry, I've been rushing a lot. I want to make it in time. This is just like in case anyone thinks about kind of the process or how to kind of get there. I'm probably not going to be able to elaborate on all of these things, but if you're interested, I'm happy to jam with you on something and kind of like use your tech or like use your ideas and together create a magical experience. So feel free to leave your contact and I'll reach out to you. I would love to play around with all the ideas and tech that you have. In essence, we're designing the experience, prototyping it, and then user testing it with new people or with strangers. And so lastly, none of this can happen without value-aligned organizational processes. And it's often easier, or it seems easier and faster to design an organization that is optimized for profitability. But if you manage to create a place where the contributors can feel like they get to do the best, or they become the best of themselves and live happy and healthy and free and social lives, then the projects and the products that they will create will end up making their users feel happy, healthy, and live social lives. This is David Blaine, who is very famous for taking his time over the years of challenging himself and also curating some of the best magicians in the world in order to create these impossible stunts. And in our space, the IKEA Collective, I also think, is a very good example for that. We have started out by kind of like just mapping out the roles and responsibilities, and Michelle is actually very, very good at managing her community and curating the people that she's working with. It's a project about restoring IKEAs and old houses in rural Japan. And as a consequence of this curation and giving people the ability to do the best they can, they're creating tea houses and now got a 100K grant to create an unmanned shop, which is, again, I would consider kind of like a very magical experience using technology. So yeah, and DAOs are, I think, also a good starting point, but they're, I mean, they have been a little bit derailed, or I'd say minimized by the financial incentives of motivating people to contribute. I think there's way more opportunity if we use social frameworks like sociocracy to bind people together and let them collaborate in a value-aligned way. And also, like, again, payments, crypto payments we can use to pay people for the true value of their work immediately, or use on-chain reputation in order to give people confidence of being themselves. And obviously encryption can be used to facilitate constructive discourse. So yeah, I have to wrap up, but next time you go to back to your project and you feel like you're playing with your friends and that's work, or you create something that is that makes other people light up in delight, or when you find out that you're pushing your boundaries over years and achieving something that you've never thought that was possible before. I think these are the moments of kind of transformative magic that we can remember and use technology for. So yeah, let's use our abilities to actually create a world with a lot of magical technologies. And I think the one space that I found in terms of communities in Web3 is actually the Ethereum ecosystem, because all of these things are represented at all layers of what we can see. And so I think there's a lot of potential in what we're doing. So yeah, let's create a better world. And if you want to see more magic tricks, let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you around. Thank you.